Hey, what's going on everyone, and welcome to another episode. I look a little wild, just I want to kind of put it out there. My hair is crazy, my beard needs to trim. I've been busy. I did not have time to go to a barber. But anyhow, I actually want to talk about something that is not necessarily on my list of topics that I wanted to talk about in this entire kind of scheduled episodes that I've been doing. I do have a list of topics that I'm gonna be that I wanted to cover throughout this year. But today something somebody mentioned on LinkedIn, and it kind of sparked an interesting thought process in my head, and I decided to let's talk about it. And as usual, I am being distracted by my watch. Thank you, Apple. Okay, so without further ado, let's hit it. Okay, so what are we talking about? We're talking about a B2B, heavily IT type products to design. Essentially, what I noticed is that a lot of people, or not a lot, but enough people in the past X amount of time, years really, have this kind of weird notion that certain products do not necessarily need to be well designed. Once again, I'm being distracted. Well designed because they're intended to a very specific user base and a very specific functionality, such as internal financial products for large corporations, such as the banks and insurance companies, investment firms, and so forth. And equally the same thing for companies like ADP. I think they're called ADP, ADP. The tax and payments and salaries, paychecks and whatnot companies. Sorry, my brain is a little off today, so it's hard to remember the exact names of these companies. Now, one of the things that I did want to talk about is the fact that some people are mentioning that it's incredibly hard, if not almost impossible, to sell an idea or explain an ROI of design towards those specific platforms, because essentially those platforms are made for other companies. It's a B2B kind of situation where, and I'm sure some of you probably either have been, currently in, or definitely will be if you're ever going to work for a B2B product, in this predicament where your managers on the business side or executives of the company really could not care less if the product looks great, works well, and usable. Why? Because they're not selling it to the end user. They're selling it to other businesses. And other businesses essentially pay based on two things: how much does it cost, and a laundry list of features. The more features the product has at the same price as the competitor, obviously that the company is going to go with that. Why? Because, well, shit, we have X amount of budget and we can buy more features to this budget, regardless if anyone is going to be fucking using these features or not. But they're there. We paid for that at a good price. But at the end of the day, these products are terrible. Now, the thing is, people who are going to be using these products are either have to go literally every so often for retraining, like hours of retraining to understand how to use some functionality of the tools, constantly reach out to tech support, educational support, and other support to figure out how to do certain things in this product. And they still manage to periodically, if not more often, screw up in whatever they're doing with these products. It's not because people don't know how to do their job, it's just because these platforms are not built well enough for these people to do their job successfully. So, how do you go about convincing your bosses to make this better? There are many ways of doing that. One of my favorite ones is literally Googling other companies that literally tripped over their own mistakes in this kind of software development and design, where they paid millions upon millions of dollars in either a lawsuit or they lost money because somebody made a mistake. Great point here is Citibank last year, I think it was either last year or this year, I don't remember, don't quote me on that, literally lost $500 million on an incorrectly designed internal financial transaction software that somebody ticked a wrong checkbox. Why? Because the checkbox was in the wrong place and the usability was terrible, design was horrible, that person did it thinking that they did the right thing, they had a few checks and balances along the way that looked at it and said, yeah, that seems about right, and then boom, there is a wire that goes out of the Citibank of, I think, $1 billion, and to some creditors. One of the creditors said, fine, we'll give the money back, and the other one said, no, we're not giving it back. So essentially, that cost them a really, really high price. And obviously, you can find a list of these different companies that flopped over these mistakes and eventually paid a hefty price for it. That's one convincing part. Lawsuits of companies, another convincing part, especially on the accessibility convincing situation, but we'll cover that in another episode. The other thing is that I typically recommend, and I did it personally myself, right? In my previous experience, is going and digging through thousands upon thousands of logs of your tech support in your organization and trying to find that needle in a haystack that is this one thing in the company's platform that people use that produce essentially enormous amount of tech support calls. Now, it doesn't sound like money, but it is money because the tech support is getting paid for what they're doing. So if they're spending, let's say, hundreds of hours every single day, yes, hundreds of hours. If there's a lot of people, yes, makes sense. Sorry, again, my brain is a little off today. That literally translates to dollars. Let's assume that a tech support person on average gets paid, I don't know, 25, 30, 40, 50 bucks an hour, maybe 60, maybe 70. Now that tech support spends, let's say, about 5 or 10 hours a day supporting that specific one thing that you've discovered, that they're not the only one. That translates to 500 bucks a day being lost only on one thing that could be better and save money to the company. It's not always about revenue. It's not about always generating more money to your company through an improvement of a product. It's also about saving them money. Case in point, some years ago, I did a study with a major bank. Not going to mention the bank, not going to mention what company I was a part of when I was doing that, but I was doing an ethnographic research and I found out that the bank is losing millions upon millions of dollars every single day across their entire workforce because of this workforce doing one single function that could be avoided. Literally later then, I had executives from this bank at our conference room sitting and asking me questions of how exactly I found it out, how exactly it was discovered, what exactly the functionality or the action that they're doing, how can it be remedied and avoided and fixed, and so forth. Why? Because it's a bank. It's a financial institution. Their job is to make more money than they lose or give out. So it's about saving money, not always necessarily making more money. So here's a great example of that. Some years ago, I worked at a company in similar kind of situation where when I joined, essentially they hired me because they had a very stale old SaaS platform that they developed in late 90s, early 2000s, haven't done a thing about it for all these years. And then they realized that all of these newcomers to the market, they're competing against them, are amazing. And their software really cannot stand against them because it's just terrible. But when I got hired, one of the first things I was told, I cannot talk to users. Why? Because we're not selling to users. We're selling to other, well, it was a government, but we're selling to the government. Government pays basically, once again, list of features. The more you have and the less the price is, they'll buy your product. But at the end of the day, people who are using this software on a daily basis, constantly struggling, constantly calling for support, and that costs everyone a lot of money unnecessarily. So what did I do? I did two things. One, I went behind the back of my company. Yes, absolutely. I defied the rules and I defied the requests of my managers saying that do not talk to the users. And I said, fine, I will not talk to the users. And then on the weekends, I went and talked to the users. Then I went to our tech support or support department. Literally asked for access to all of their logs. I spent about a week digging through thousands upon thousands of logs. And I found that one little needle in a haystack, that one single screen in our product that were generating about 15 to 20% of the entire massive product support calls. That's a lot of calls. A lot. And so essentially, I led the redesign of that specific screen that dropped those calls to, if I remember correctly, this was years ago, to 7.5 or so percent. Still, people were confused. Obviously, not everyone is very techy, and that's a very technical product. That's understandable, but not 15 to 20%. That's just ridiculous. It dropped to about 7 or 7.5, if I remember correctly. Now, talking to actual users that I did behind the back of my company led to me completely overhauling the entire product, redesigning the entire experience that led to the acquisition of the company. Am I claiming that my redesign was directly linked to the acquisition of the company? No, definitely not. Typically, companies are not getting acquired only for design, even though there are cases, and I can bring them up if somebody wants to know. Ask me in comments below. I will definitely answer that question. I do know some companies that did that. I just don't remember their name at the top of my head right now. However, when the company got acquired and the new owners of the company were giving a speech about their decisions of acquiring the company and why and so forth and the future of this company and how they see us all merging together, they did mention that one of the key decision points for them was the fact that the software, the product was completely redesigned and was really well done and is really usable, and a lot of the users of the product now actually like the product versus hating the fuck out of it. So, what have we learned today? We learned today that A, people like incredibly technical administrators, system administrators, security analysts, business analysts, day traders and whatnot, they're still fucking people. And they still enjoy the same amazing designs of other companies, such as Ubers and Lyfts and Airbnbs, and the list goes on. All these companies that people love and adore and enjoy their beautiful and well thought designs and well thought products. We're all people, regardless how technical or not technical we are. So we do have similar desires in using a product we enjoy and using a product we like. So yeah, think about it that way. Yes, they're technical. Yes, they'll grasp whatever you're building and doing much quicker than somebody else. But it doesn't mean that the product should look like crap, does not work well, be not accessible, and be clunky. And people need extra time to figure out how to use that shit, and then call support for hours to figure out how to use other shit. So think about it that way. And also, if a company tells you not to talk to users, well, come on, buddy. If you're a designer, your job is to understand who's using the product, how they're using it, and how to make it better for them. Along the way, understanding the business requirements, and how to combine the two to make sure that the product that you're changing, improving, redesigning, and building better actually makes a revenue or saves money to the company. That's your job. As much as we want to design great products and who cares about money, at the end of the day, our job is to make a product that makes money, because that's what sustains the company, that's what sustains our jobs, and so forth. Once again, I'm distracted by my watch. Anyhow, on that note, thank you for listening to my little rant. I think it was the first rant on my channel this year. More to come, trust me. Yeah, thank you for listening. Thank you for your time. If you're new here, like, subscribe, hit that bell icon so you know every time I'm posting a new video. And if you have any feedback, if you disagree with me, if you want to say something to me, comments below this video. I answer to literally everyone who posts any kind of feedback or anything below the videos. I always like to talk to people and hear their opinions. On that note, once again, thank you. Have an awesome weekend, rest of the month, amazing life, and never stop learning.